Hello everyone, welcome back to Newsroom. I'm Chella Smith. This is your Middle East to U.S. entertainment news here on YouTube. I air on Fridays. I bring you the latest on reforms and economics of Iraq based on reports put out by the Middle East news media outlets. I do this weekly review and it's based off my interest. Thank you everyone for joining me. Welcome back to 2023, our first week back in the studio. I had a wonderful holiday. I hope you guys did too. We're in the studio late today, but let's get right into our news headlines. Last week, the week before, we talked about internationalism, Iraq, and Iraq securing U.S. bonds. Let's take a look at this week's headlines. Baghdad today reports the financial and economic advisor to Prime Minister Mohammed Saleh said that the Iraqi dinar is the strongest degree of its stability. Saleh said to Baghdad today that the Iraqi dinar is the strongest degree in stability. The instability of the exchange rate of the dollar against the dinar is caused by international compliance control that require transparency and border governance in the behaviors of merchants in foreign currencies through financing foreign trade from the window of central banks, and the lack of stability is my time, and it will be back very soon. He indicated that the balance of foreign currency reserves is about $100 billion, which is the highest of Iraq's financial history, and that this confirms that Iraqi dinar is the strongest degree of stability. Back to normal as it was before. This comes as the exchange rate of the dollar has been fluctuating for days after reaching a threshold of 160,000 dinars for every $100. It later declined and rose to about 156,000 dinars amid government pledges to control the exchange rate. Economics Euphrates News reports a member of the Parliament Finance Committee, Jamar Cougar, revealed on Thursday the issue of the rise in the dollar exchange rate due to political and economic speculation. The government is not seeking to raise the dollar price, he says, and things are still under its control, and the central bank, which has high foreign currency reserves, Cougar said in a press statement, the government will return the exchange rate to its previous rate of 1480 dinars. Then he went on saying, any talks of returning the price to 1200 dinars to $1 has become a thing of the past. Satali, Iraq reports Baghdad. The exchange rate of the dollar has risen again after the limited decline, while the fate of those involved in as known as the theft of the century is still unknown. The U.S. intervention in preventing currency smuggling was exposed by dozens of banks in Iraq that were described as shops for currency smuggling. On the other hand, operations to circumvent the new conditions to maintain the stability of the dollar price are still going on, the latest of which forgery of travel tickets. In conjunction with the events that issued the theft of the tax secretariats interact after the governments announced the recovery of another small batch of money equaling to 1% of the remaining amount. According to the information, that the theft case may end with only one accused being held accountable, and it is likely his trial will take place after a few days in return for covering up the rest of the parties. In addition, the security forces cut off yesterday evening Al-Rashid Street in central Baghdad due to the demonstrations against the central bank in protest against the continued high price of the dollar. The exchange rate of the dollar has fallen last week in the threshold of 1,500 dinars after the government announced a number of measures to control the foreign currency. But with the beginning of this week, it returned to nearly 1,600. And about that crisis, an informed political source says in an interview with Al-Mada that the rise of the dollar continues because private banks have not yet adapted to the American conditions. Al-Mada has revealed earlier direct American intervention in the process of controlling currency smuggling, which was the support by the statement of the finance minister Taif Sami. And the source, who asked not to be named, said that the American conditions have exposed more than 60 private banks so far because they do not have a real banking system. The source described those banks as shops of forged import bills and smuggling foreign currencies. Only about 20 private banks out of more than 80 banks entered the new system established by the U.S. Federal Bank within the central bank. The source revealed that some of those banks that entered the new platform continued the process of forging invoices and were exposed. On the other hand, the source confirms that the existence of new circumvention of these procedures, represented by the facts that some banks provide fake travel tickets in cooperation with travel companies for the purpose of obtaining the dollar, which is given at the original price from the central bank, which is 14.75 dinars for $1. Al-Mada reviewed a document issued by the Tourism Authority addressed to travel agencies asking them to commit not to issue incorrect and cancelable travel tickets after non-traveling citizens received the amount allocated to the traveler for the purpose of trading in hard currency dollars. The tourism book warned companies that do not comply with these conditions of exposure to imminent legal accountability. According to the previous information received by Al-Mada, the volume of hard currency smuggling every week ranges between $100 to $250 million, at least half of which goes to Tehran and the rest goes to 3 neighboring countries. In the meantime, the former member of Parliament Integrity Committee, Rahim al-Dajari, revealed that the currency had escaped just days after it entered Iraq. Al-Dajari says in an interview with Al-Mada that when the money from selling oil is converted into dollars, the currency has serial numbers, and the U.S. Federal Bank discovers after 2 or 3 days that the currency has moved to another country. Al-Dajari, who is the head of the Kappa movement, said that the banking companies manipulated the exchange rate despite the existence of the rate from the central bank, noting that there is a special section in the National Security Agency, which is the economic security concerns with monitoring these companies, and it must move to close the violating offices. The central bank has decided to expand the number of bank outlets for selling foreign currencies to 20 banks. In a statement by the bank stated last Monday, it was decided to expand the number of bank outlets from selling foreign currencies from 10 banks to 20 banks. He added that the central bank also decided to increase the amount of allocated to these banks weekly to meet the largest possibility of numbers that those covered by purchasing of the foreign currencies in accordance with the instructions and controls issued by the banks. In addition, the controversy has returned again over the issuing of stealing the century after Integrity announced the recovery of 4 billion dinars. The head of the commissions, Hader Hanan, refused in a press conference held a few days ago to mention the names of the persons who's returned the money, but the leaks indicated that he was an advisor to former Prime Minister. According to the information, al-Jabari will be tried next week in place of all those accused of the theft because the incident is linked to parties and fractions. In this regards, the deputy close to the coordination framework, Mustafa Sanad, said in a post on Telegram that the accused al-Jabari asked to be released on bail and pledged to recover the inflated amounts, following the example of model Nur Zuhar. Al-Jabari, the former head of Parliament's Finance Committee, was arrested at the end of last year on the grounds of the theft of the century and his wealth ballooning to 16 billion dinars. More than 2 weeks ago, the government announced the recovery of the second batch of Nur Zuhar's, the most prominent of those involved in the theft, bringing the total amount recovered to 300 billion dinars out of the 4 trillion dinars. In the last conference held by the chairman of the Integrity Committee, he says the funds recovered today amounted to 4 billion Iraqi dinars, which is part of the total of the 17 billion. The head of the Integrity Commission stated that 13 billion dinars and some millions are still owed by the accused, stressing the work is to be done to recover them. Also adding that the trial of the accused will take place on January 12th, but he refuses to reveal his name. Hanan noted that Iraq will recover during the next 2 days $80 million from the United States of America smuggling since the time of the foreign regime. Twilight News reported dozens of people organized on Wednesday a demonstration in front of the Central Bank of Iraq in the center of the capital Baghdad to demand the depreciation of the dinar exchange rate against the U.S. dollar. The reporter of Shafaq News Agency said that the demonstration was organized in front of the Central Bank building on Rashid Street in central Baghdad, despite the heavy rainfalls, explaining that the demonstration demanded a reduction in the exchange rate and return to 118,000 dinars per $100. Last Friday, Finance Minister Taib Sami reveals new details related to the draft federal budget law of 2023 and pointed out that it included a fixed exchange rate for the dollar amounting to 1450 dinars. It definitely feels good to be back. You've been watching Newsroom Weekly Review. I'm Chella Smith, your Middle East U.S. entertainment news on reforms and economics Iraq. I bring you the latest Dinar news without having to keep up with all the different outlets. I'm here on YouTube every Friday, so don't forget to subscribe and turn those notification bells on. If you like my content, give me a thumbs up. If you really like my content, you're always welcome to leave a super thanks. I hope you've had a wonderful Christmas and a great New Year. It's 2023. Looks promising in Iraq. I look forward to see what happens there in the weeks to come. Again, thank you for being a subscriber, and thank you for visiting Newsroom Chella Smith for your trusted Dinar news. I'll see you next week. Take care.